So I wanted to make a video talking about Deno and what I think about it after playing around with it a little bit and reading some documentation, reading some articles. And I've got this the Medium account of IOJS up, and I think some more junior folks to JavaScript might not know what IOJS is. So we've this whole idea of JavaScript and Node. Node is bad. We need a successor to Node. We've been here before. I don't remember when io.js came out exactly, but we can see that some of these Medium posts are back from 2015. So people that are skeptical of Deno, I think, especially those that have been in the ecosystem for a long time, I think their skepticism is justified. But Deno is, it's gained a lot of popularity. We're talking 78,000 stars on GitHub. I wish the number of stars on GitHub kind of correlated with how often I saw it in the professional world. I've tried introducing Deno at a couple of companies, and most most people seem to be pretty hands off and risk averse, and they're not even open to experimenting with it, which is really unfortunate because I do think it has a lot of potential. But again, we've been here before. So back in 2015, or in that area of time, in that era, I think if I remember correctly, because I was working back then in the industry, and I guess the JavaScript industry, if we can call it that. It seemed like the community as a whole was they were unhappy that Node wasn't. They felt like they felt that Node wasn't evolving fast enough, and that the company that originally kind of birthed it, Joyent, wasn't, they weren't responsive enough. They weren't fixing things or improving things in a timely manner. And so there was a fork called IOJS, and IOJS, in a similar fashion to what we're seeing now with Deno, took a lot of the JavaScript community from Node. And so there was this huge fracture, and you kind of see fractures like this in other worlds of programming too. For example, Python 2 versus 3. And thankfully, usually these fractures end at some point. Unfortunately, the fractures are long and way too drawn out. And I think part of the problem is that we don't talk about these things enough, and we are too risk averse. We are afraid to innovate and afraid to admit that what we've been doing for so long was a bad idea. And it's really sad, but at the same time, it's exciting. Anyway, so it seems like now with Deno, like I said, we're here again, and I'm pretty sure the person who's making Deno, the main person behind Deno, is the original creator of Node.js. And so here we go. Here's just some thoughts on Deno. These are unique to me. I'm not saying I'm right about everything. I'm not saying I'm wrong either. Take this as just information from somebody that's been working with JavaScript for, well, at least professionally for 7 years. I love JavaScript, the language. I'm a huge fan. So, the desire for a successor to Node to exist is definitely something I have. I don't want Node to be the end, right? I don't want us to continue writing JavaScript and then Node and JavaScript just kind of fizzle away into the abyss and are replaced by whatever comes next. I would love for Deno to be what allows JavaScript to continue to be as popular as it is. to be as successful and as broad reaching as it is. And in my opinion, it has the best chance right now. So I've got some points here on the left, and these are in no particular order. So we're just going to start with deno-compile. So with Deno, you can take some JavaScript program and you can create an executable. It kind of reminds me of something like Go, where you can write your code, you can run Go code without compiling anything. In a similar fashion, Deno has a Deno run command and a Deno compile command. Now, where this might become useful is, let's say you're trying to make a Docker image. You're building a Docker image, and size and speed is really important. We need this container to exist and work as fast as possible. So being able to build an image without having to install Deno first for the sake of interpreting some JavaScript code, being able to just, hey, let's copy this executable into our image and then use it without having to install a whole bunch of dependencies first. That's great. That's awesome. That's something I need. That's something a lot of people are going to need. However, if you actually play around with deno-compile, you'll realize that if you do this, if you run deno-compile and then you compile just the welcome file, it's 86 megabytes. And of course, I'm saying this in November of 2021. This can change in the future. However, I'm not so sure about that. Ideally, you don't want to have an 80-something megabyte executable, and I would hate to see how large a binary of a substantial project is. I'm kind of nervous about that, and I know that disk space, right, is relative to time per se. Now terabytes are normal, right? 10 years ago, terabytes were massive. So maybe in 5 years, 86 megabytes isn't so much, and maybe it's okay that JavaScript is so beefy and fat, or whatever interpreter you're using. Maybe that's okay because in the future, relatively speaking, it won't be beefy because we've just disk space has just grown so much that where okay, a terabyte is now equivalent to what a gigabyte was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever. So it's great that Deno is at least thinking about this, though. And when I say Deno is thinking, of course I mean Deno and the forces behind it. They're looking at Go and they're saying, "Wow, that's awesome. I wish JavaScript could do that." And when I look at Go, I think the same thing. I don't want to. I can go learn Go routines so I can get like a 1 megabyte binary. That's fine. I'd much rather just keep using async await and an event loop. That'd be great. I don't want to have to learn another language just so I can have a really tiny, efficient Docker image. That's not ideal. However, 86 megabytes for a welcome message, that's not ideal either. And obviously, if you read some of this, or if you read more about deno-compile, you'll find that it's unstable. It's a newer feature, which is, I guess, it's encouraging, because I'm hoping that there's a push to kind of get those binaries down into a smaller size. As of now, that's just too big for what I'm trying to do. And I'll also say, Node is capable of this too. It's not, the idea of a binary is not unique. We've had something like Electron for a long time on the Node side of things. And however, that doesn't discount that, the creators of the ecosystem themselves are pushing this. Electron isn't Node. right? But Deno is deno-compile, so that's great. That's promising. That's something to look forward to and to kind of keep track of. Okay, so here's something that I'm not, I kind of have mixed feelings about this, and I'm hoping somebody who watches this in the future might leave a comment and explain to me why I'm dumb for not realizing why this is a great thing. But if we go look at the Deno standard library, and if we go into the file system module here, we can see, we have empty dir, ensure file, things that we've seen before. Like if you've ever used FS Extra from the Node.js side of things, this looks similar. But look, the API here is pretty small. This is pretty bare. And you might realize that there's no methods for reading a file here. That's interesting. That's an interesting design choice to not include reading a file as a part of a file system standard module. And somebody tell me, maybe I'm stupid, maybe I'm missing something, maybe this file system module is inheriting from something. However, and this is what happened to me, somebody who comes in and starts to use Deno for a project, eventually they're going to need to read a file, right? You're going to go to that, you're going to come here and you're going to be like, wait, where are all the reading methods? Well, you'll find out that Deno exposes a global called Deno, and there's a read text file function defined on the Deno global, which is a really strange design choice. And I would love to have some Deno expert tell me, hey, this is why it's this way. But until I figure out why that is, I'm gonna just be weirded out by that. It's not something, it's not a bad thing per se. It's just weird. It's not a good feeling to have. Somebody coming from Node.js to Deno, they're gonna run into this and they're gonna think, they're gonna probably feel the same way I do. Okay, so moving on, we've got security options, right? So one of the goals of Deno is to be more secure out of the box, that's fantastic. If you keep track of cybersecurity news, you know that basically there's no security on the internet. The sense that your information is secure, that's a false sense of security when early 20s people are breaching T-Mobile, folks are, and then just dumping the information on the dark web. And this is, hundreds of companies, large companies, are being hacked every day. And I know other programmers out there that are getting paid big bucks. We all know this. Usually, security is an afterthought. And so the emphasis on security is a good thing. And so maybe you're not familiar, the security features of Deno. So if we go back to maybe just the documentation here, the manual. There's some commands or there's some options on Deno to allow things like file system reading or writing or network activity, right? So we've got allow all, allow empty, allow environment access, allow loading dynamic libraries. So we've got these allow whatever options, right? So we can say, hey, my Deno process, it's not going to need network or it's not going to need file system. So, and I imagine this exists because if we look at Node and we look at the shithole that is a Node modules directory, we don't want something in our Node modules folder using network if we know that our program doesn't need the network, right? We know that if our JavaScript program, all it needs to do is read a text file, there's no reason it needs the ability to talk to the internet, right? And so these are great in that, hey, we can we can draw those lines in the sand, and we can say my program will never need network access. So any potential compromised module that attempts to do that is just going to run into a wall. That's great. I think. I mean, I think that's great. It seems great. However, it is a bit cumbersome. Not gonna lie. So if you're deep in the weeds of developing something, and you're just frequently running your tests, you're frequently using the command line to try to reach your goal, having to remember all of these options and type them up, that's pretty cumbersome. I'm sure there's going to be solutions for that. I'm sure there's going to be ways to make that easier. And of course, you can always do things to mitigate that. You can always create some aliases or some shell scripts, right? There's always things you can do to make that easier on yourself. And maybe that's just how things are going to have to be in the future, right? Maybe security, maybe part of the problem with security nowadays is we try to make things too easy, right? Maybe things are supposed to be cumbersome. Things that maybe the creators of Deno are right in this. I think they are. So that's good. This is great thing. So moving on. Yeah, and I kind of touched on node modules already, but so reading about Deno and learning about it, what got me to actually use it was the idea that, hey, you don't have a node modules folder anymore. That's brilliant. That's great. Node modules were they were a terrible idea looking back, and they even seemed terrible when they were created, right? The package managers there's so many of them already for everything. And just the idea that you're adding another one in itself, that's a bad idea in my opinion. And so not only are we adding another package manager, but now we're adding this convention for naming a module and giving a module an address, a module name. We've already gone through the shitstorm of module ownership on npm. We've already seen, hey, I deleted a module and it blew up everything, or hey, I wanted to create a module but it wasn't available, or this or that. And we've seen some of those problems be solved with things like namespaces and such. And gosh, if only there was some kind of universal resource locator that we could use, that was unique and had been around and tried and tested. Obviously, I'm being sarcastic right now. The idea that Deno uses URLs, well, duh, that's what URLs are for. It's, and a lot of people didn't realize this back when Node was the cool kid on the block, right? A lot of people they kind of looked past that. They were so excited about everything else that Node brought to the table that they didn't stop and think, wait, we already have a standard for locating things on the internet. Oh gosh, what was that called again? Yeah. So having the creators of Deno to sit me down and say, hey, look, you should have been using URLs. I'm like, wow, you're right. And I knew it the whole time, but I just need somebody to tell me that. And it's okay that it takes longer to type a URL. That's fine. That's how it should be. It shouldn't be as easy as npm I to add 100 megabytes of dependencies to your project. That's reckless. That is reckless behavior. You need to spend time vetting your dependencies. You need to spend time researching your third-party modules. That is necessary now. That is a necessary thing, and Deno is going to help you do that better. Not only that, Deno is going to take care of caching your modules. It's going to make sure that, hey, if I import a URL, that it's available and it's cached and it's efficient. So this is great. This is awesome. Love it. All right. And I guess my last point here, and these are more so icing on the cake. These aren't game changers per se, but these are things that I think modern languages are going to have moving forward. So, for example, Deno.FMT, and I'm pretty sure this was inspired by Golang's FMT. I can't tell you how many times I've been at a job and I finish a PR and somebody tells me, "Hey, I want you to add spaces around this variable," and that comment in a PR, those kinds of things will cause me to leave a team. If I'm pushing up great work, right? It's I'm accomplishing goals and I'm not introducing bugs and I'm being quick, but you're gonna nitpick formatting of my code. Those kinds of conversations are not important in my opinion, and I don't really care what syntax somebody is using. What kind of patterns they're using. I don't care how many spaces you have. I don't care at all how many tabs you have, or how you capitalize your letters, or whether or not you use snake K's or pass. I don't give a shit. I could care less. It pisses me off when those kinds of things happen, when those kinds of conversations happen, because I'm just trying to do my fucking job, okay? So Deno.FMT, this is when you use Deno, you're saying, hey, you're agreeing, hey guys, I don't want to talk about formatting. I don't. Deno's already made the decision. Read the docs. You see Deno.FMT? Execute that command. Don't care, right? That's great. Love it. Another thing, testing. Okay, let's talk about testing in Node. Let's talk about Mocha. Let's talk about QUnit. Let's talk about Jasmine. Let's talk about Jest. Let's talk about fill in the blank fucking test runner. I don't care. They all do mostly the same thing. Granted, yes, okay, sure, some of them are better than others, but there doesn't need to be 20 of them. And I don't want to have to learn a new one every time I switch to a different organization. I'm sorry. It's annoying. These are problems that aren't interesting. I don't want to learn another testing API. I don't want to learn another assertion API. I don't care if it's declarative or behavioral. I don't give a shit. I have tests. I have things that need to work, and they need to continue to work. And so the fact that Deno decides for everyone, hey, here's how you're going to test. Here's how your assertions are going to work. Love it. Great. Perfect. Awesome. Let's be productive. Let's not bicker about stupid things. Okay? So all in all, Deno, my first impressions, love it. Want to use it. I want to work at companies that use it. I don't want to write with Node anymore, really. I don't, unfortunately. I don't want to have a Node modules folder anymore. I don't want to talk about code, syntax, or formatting. I don't want to live in a Node module directory. So anybody that's looking at Deno and they're thinking about trying it, I think you should. I think you should try it as soon as possible. I think that the faster you get into Deno, the more likely it is that you'll have a lasting impact on the ecosystem, the more likely it is that you'll become a contributor and actually help the community in some substantial way. And that's going to give you recognition in your career, and you're going to feel better, and it's a good thing to do. It's a good thing to help push the envelope. It's a good thing to innovate while you're doing your job. So go download it, go try it, go use it, go make an issue, go make a PR on it, go build something cool. Anyway, if you found this video entertaining or interesting, give me a like, give me a subscribe. I'm going to make more videos just talking about programming stuff in general. So thanks.